I am going to ask a question, and that you are going to say the first thing that comes into your mind. And although I won't be hearing you say this, I still want you to think of the first thing that comes into your mind. Ready? What is one of the greatest villains of all time? Okay, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so there is a good chance that a lot of you said Darth Vader, which, is a good choice because of his menace, but for someone to say Darth Vader is one of the greatest villains of all time is accurate, yet as basic as a 10-year-old answering the question 2 plus 2. So let's think harder next time, people. And same to anyone that said Joker or Thanos for being simple-minded people who probably has a C in one of their classes right now. And if you said someone like Kylo Ren, the fact you don't know what good villain he is bad enough. For people that said anything unique that not everyone will think of, congratulations for being a nerd who desperately needs a girlfriend. And if in any way this intro made you turn the video off or make you want to turn the video off, I have already proved my point while making this video. And while you make your way through this video, once you are done, I encourage you to rewind and replay this video up till here, and I am sure you will understand what I did, that right now, you did not notice. 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, with some jazz filling up your eardrums, let's actually get into the topic of this video, and how specifically Terence Fletcher is one of the greatest monsters of all time. And sure, the thing is that a lot of people would know who this villain is, but at the same time, I don't think this is the first villain you thought up of when I asked you to. And I will mainly be explaining my point through how the first scene of this movie depicts him. Now, for people that don't know what I am talking about, don't worry, I will not leave you in the dark. So let's talk about where Terence Fletcher is from. Okay? Subscribe, by the way. Now. Thank you. So, this video is going to be talking about the 10-year-old movie called Whiplash, which was based off of a short film of the same name, and weirdly enough, this movie is made by the same person who directed and won Best Director for La La Land. He also directed the movie First Man with Ken himself about Apollo 11, and Babylon, which was the 3-hour epic with Barbie herself that released 2 years ago. Whiplash is a movie I recently watched for the first time, and something that I really want to talk about and I am very passionate about now. So, Whiplash is about a drummer who has a deep fascination with music and is noticed by the director of music for one of the best bands in the country, who picks the drummer up and pushes him beyond his limits. The film may sound like an average drama movie, but for people that know how this movie plays out, calling it an average drama movie is the understatement of 2014, because this movie, as I will dive more into soon, does a lot of stuff, and if you do not want to hear spoilers for this movie, I recommend clicking off right now and coming back to this video after you watch the movie. Please watch the movie, it's so good. But this movie includes, and I probably will miss some things, verbal harassment, physical abuse, mental torture, slurs, car crash, acts of violence, inappropriate and offensive statements, content warning because of someone unaliving, overworking for perfection that causes insanity, unhealthy representation of life, and an ending that, in the surface, seems like a happy ending, but in reality is a dark and sad, bitter ending to a fantastic movie. I mean, don't get me wrong, I believe that some drama movies probably at one time or another have something like verbal harassment, but there is something a lot different when it comes to verbal harassment in other movies compared to this movie, and how its main goal is to make you afraid, while at the same time not a traditional horror movie type of afraid, but is still technically a drama movie that has scary and intense elements to it, like how this movie has someone getting hit by a truck out of nowhere in an already seriously heated scene, and although it's a jump scare, it's something that adds on to the scene instead of taking it as a horror role. Now that you have some more background on this movie, let's actually talk about Fletcher, Terence Fletcher. An intriguing detail put in is how, in the beginning of the movie, which is going to be my main evidence for this video, when Fletcher first walks up to Andrew, he immediately scares him and tells him to stay and starts to ask questions of who he is, and goes into asking if he knows who he is, and informs the audience that he is looking for new players for his band. The interesting thing is that he asks him why he stopped playing, which is a response that most people would be like, oh, okay, I guess he's asking me to keep playing, as the connotation is that he asked why he stopped, because he wants to hear more. And after Andrew goes into another small solo after he's done playing, he is asked,
"Did I ask you to start playing again?"
Which is confusing because of how the connotations of him asking why he stopped playing was false, but in reality, he was genuinely curious of why he stopped playing, and the key important part of this is that Fletcher, throughout the movie, says things that with connotation sound positive, when in reality is something that always has a negative connotation. Another thing that can be learned from this first scene is when he wants things done, he wants them done. He immediately asks him to start doing things for him. Now, something interesting is that in movies, sometimes the mentor starts off with being this, and being not someone very likable, and asks a lot of the person they are training. But over time, we start to learn more about them, and start to grow sympathy to them. But the common theme in Whiplash is the literal feeling of a lot of the points, like how he asks him to start playing faster and faster as he already starts to push Andrew to be better and better, even in the first scene, when we haven't even fully met these characters yet. Fletcher is demanding, yet in the end he asks Andrew to play, but then just leaves in the middle of him playing. But a second later comes back to grab his jacket and says,
"Oopsie daisy, forgot my jacket."
Which also reveals another thing. He's still a human being. Oopsie daisy, as weird as it sounds, is something that we can all relate to, as we have forgotten things before and have to go back and get it, and to get rid of some of the awkwardness we need to some things to say to justify our return. So for Fletcher to come back in to grab his jacket, say oopsie daisy, and then leave, gives mixed messaging. Call Andrew out on something that's not serious, demand he does something for him, rudely exits, and then to come back in and say,
"Oopsie daisy,"
is a perfect way to end it off. As from our first interpretation, he is a jerk, yet he comes back in, says it, and then leaves, is something that leaves the audience wondering who this guy is and why he does what he does, as this is something that throughout the movie they touch on, with the film trying to make the audience believe one thing, when in reality it is very different than what it is. Like how, for one example, we watch Fletcher blow up over this one person thinking he is out of tune, but then after forcing him to leave, he politely says that he wasn't the one off tune, and that another person was off tune, but that other person doesn't get his full wrath. I mean, he literally just smiles after he says that. This touch of keeping the audience on its toes is something that keeps this villain continuously seem unpredictable. And with all these factors, if we were to use this writing advice for your own character, we would have made a villain that is evil at its core, and directly shows that evil out loud, yet still to some degree still has a soft teddy bear side, which makes your villain unpredictable, yet still completely evil. The ending of Whiplash complements the rest of the film nicely, as we leave off with Andrew pushing through all the pain and playing the greatest drum solo of all time, with the support of Fletcher, who accomplishes his goal, as well as the film leaves off on a bitter note, knowing that although Andrew has completed his goal encouraged and strengthened the villain, making Fletcher the true winner in this situation. I hope for anyone that was interested enjoyed this video. And may I just say, if it's been a while since you've seen Whiplash or haven't seen it at all, I very much recommend it. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm Enchanted. Bye.